Looking back at old mission logs, certain dates just stick in your mind. October 1st, 1943 is one of those days. We were up over the Austrian Alps in the Pink Lady. That was our B-17, tail number 4230043. At 28,000 feet, you don't really think about the grand strategy of the war, you just think about how freezing it is. The air up there feels completely dead, and if you're dumb enough to pull off your gloves for a minute, your skin turns black almost instantly. All you hear for hours is that heavy, rhythmic thumping of the 4 right engines. It sort of puts you to sleep until everything goes wrong. We had just dropped the payloads and turned back toward our base in North Africa. We thought we were in the clear, but a lone Messerschmitt was sitting way up in the sun where we couldn't see him. He dove straight at our nose section. The 20mm shells just tore right through the glass cockpit. It wasn't like the movies with slow-motion explosions. It was just a split-second mess of shattering glass, metal teeth, and blinding wind. One of those shells took out Joe Giauque, our pilot, right away. He just collapsed forward onto the yoke. I got peppered with some shrapnel in my chest and face, but honestly, the shock is so high you don't even feel the cuts until much later. The real problem was that Joe's weight pushed the stick all the way forward. Suddenly, we weren't a bomber anymore, just 20 tons of falling metal. The nose went down, pointing straight at the sharp gray rocks of the mountains below. The speed built up so fast that the wings started shaking and bowing upward. I scrambled over the floor, which was slippery with blood, trying to pull the wheel back. Nothing. The steel control cables that connect the wheel to the tail had been completely chopped by the shells. The wheel just spun loosely in my hands like a broken toy. We had 0 rudder, 0 ailerons, nothing to stop us from slamming into the granite. I knew the guys in the back were probably bracing for impact, totally unaware of what a mess it was up front. With the wind screaming in through the broken nose at 300 miles per hour, my hands were freezing up, but I remembered the little autopilot console on the right side. It's this clunky little electrical backup box, not meant for pulling a heavy bomber out of a terminal dive, but it was all I had. I flipped it on and started messing with the tiny dials, trying to command the electric motors to trim the tail up, all while fighting Joe's body, which was still leaning hard against the main stick. It felt like trying to steer a massive truck by using the power window buttons. Somehow, the old girl responded. The nose slowly started to heavy its way up. The metal skin on the wings was rippling from the force, but we leveled out maybe 300 feet above the snow on the peaks, close enough to see the texture of the ice. But we were still a broken wreck, thousands of miles from home, and right over enemy territory. To make things worse, Joe's body was still pinning the main controls, meaning any bad bump could send us down again. I had to unbuckle my harness, stand up in that freezing 300-mile-per-hour gale, and pull my dead friend out of the seat so I could take over. It's a strange thing, dragging a guy you had coffee with a few hours ago across a shaking floor while you're bleeding yourself, but you just do it. I got into the left seat and spent the next 7 hours steering that plane across the Mediterranean, using nothing but those tiny autopilot knobs. You can't make real turns like that. You just make lazy, tiny corrections. No maps left. Radio was dead, so I just kept the sun on my left side and hoped we'd hit Tunis. My fingers were so stiff from the cold they felt like wood, just twitching those little dials back and forth to keep the wings level. When the African coast finally showed up, I realized the hardest part was left. You can't really land a plane normally without a rudder or aileron, so I had to guide her down by messing with the throttles, giving more juice to the left engines if I wanted to slide right, and using the electric trim to keep the nose up. We hit the dirt runway hard. The Pink Lady bounced twice, then skidded sideways through the sand, the tail grinding into the dirt with a horrible racket. A massive wall of dust came over the windows and everything went black for a second. When the grinding stopped, I just sat there. The engines coughed, spit some oil, and died. Total silence, except for the ticking of hot metal. The ground crew ran out with fire extinguishers and pulled us out. They couldn't believe the plane was even in one piece when they looked at the severed wires in the cockpit. I was just sitting there, shaking from the cold, with my hands still stuck in the shape of those tiny autopilot dials. People talk a lot about the heavy armor of the Flying Fortress keeping crews safe. But that day, it wasn't the metal. It was just a matter of not letting go of those dials when everything else told you it was over.